Welcome back, guys, to the 2 Plus podcast. I am Paddy, and today I'm going to be running through Chaff. Chaff is a unit type, a description of a unit that is often a throwaway unit that can cause a lot of disruption on a battlefield. In the old world, it seems to have kind of lost its place, but I feel like it's coming back with a little bit of gusto in the recent months or so. When it first came out, people were expecting big things from like the Great Eagle and the like, and it turns out they were just kind of chaff units. And the old world has lent itself so much to units that kill things that chaff kind of got left behind. But I think people are kind of catching up a little bit. Maybe not at that very top tier, which I think is dominated by some pretty powerful things. But when you're playing semi-competitive Warhammer, or if not competitive balanced Warhammer, is probably a better way to describe it, I think chaff has a very useful role. I think there's units that do it better than others. I think there's some that aren't as good as people think. But in this video, I'm going to describe what makes a good chaff unit, how to use them, and what are some of the units you could look at to utilize their ability. So first off, we'll just explain what chaff is. So in my opinion, and this is purely subjective, but I think there's 3 types of chaff, which I'm going to go through in a bit more detail shortly. Those 3 types are scouts, speed bumps, and decoys. And they all play very different roles. Often they're different units, they cost different amounts, and they definitely do different things on the battlefield. So I'm going to go through in a few minutes or in a few slides what these things do and what are some units that work in these scenarios. But to boil it down even further, what are characteristics of chaff? Now, I should probably put that second one at the top because first and foremost, they are cheap. Chaff is something you are throwing at your opponent to disrupt rather than kill a lot of the time. They are an annoyance. They get in the way. They can frustrate your opponent and they can stop their most important things doing what they're meant to do. So I think the 2 equally important things, generally they need to be fast because you need to get them in the way or get them out of the way quickly. And they need to be cheap. So you don't care if they die. Those are probably the 2 most important things. Thankfully, with chaff, although there are very good skirmishing chaff units, I don't think skirmishing chaff is always the best chaff. In that photo there, you can see some wolf riders who would definitely be considered chaff. When I say cheap in the above point, generally cheap is under 100 points for the unit. The closer you can get to 0 while still making them useful, the better, because you often only want to take 1 or 2 of these units and they're likely to die, so you don't want it to cost much. Skirmishers, there's a lot of good, cheap skirmishers out there. I don't necessarily think wolf riders are good, but in this scenario and in that photo, they did the perfect job. They distracted my opponent and then they got into the back line and killed a war machine before they were blown up themselves. But they drew my opponent's attention away and then they achieved something for me with their very fast movement 9 skirmishing cavalry. So you get double the attacks. I think that unit cost 70 points or so. They're not in marching column there. They were skirmishers. They just didn't make the charge, but still with a champion and another guy. That was 3 guys on 3 attacks from on top, 2 attacks from the cav. And that was enough to kill the 3 skeleton crew, thankfully. But as I'm going to go through in a couple of examples, skirmishers aren't always best. One specific role with chaff, which is the speed bump role, is very important that they are not skirmishers. So that's a really fun and refreshing point of chaff in this game. There's 2 other very important points, and that is don't expect them to kill much. They might, and if they do, it's an absolute bonus, and you're really getting a lot of value out of your chaff. But they're really not there to kill things. It's only a bonus if they do. And the other part is you need to expect that they die. You cannot pour resources into protecting chaff. That is when you are misplaying chaff. Chaff is there to die. It's there to get in the way, waste your opponent's time, and get slaughtered. If it takes longer to get killed, that's even better. If they kill things, then they've done an incredible job. So they're kind of what makes good chaff. Most factions have a unit that fills this role. Some are better than others, but most factions can bring some level of chaff. Now let's get into those archetypes I mentioned. So the first one is what I like to call scouts. Now the role of a scout, and in this photo, as you can see there, this is a beast pack so it's 1 beast handler with 1 wolf. comes in at a massive 19 points, which is might be the cheapest unit in the game. Someone can tell me if it's not, but if you can get 2 skirmishing single units for 19 points, there's generally a use for it. So you may as well bring it. The way that this works using them, and I don't mean they're scouts because they have the rule scouts, they don't. It's more the action of what they're doing is scouting. It's a 19-point drop. That's how you think of these units. In this example, the Beast Pack. It allows you to waste drops so you can see where your opponent puts their high value targets. So then you can line up favorable matchups. Once this thing's on the board, who cares where it goes? Its entire job is done after you've put it on the table, because then it forces your opponent to place something down and you can respond. Now, this doesn't work for every army. Some armies really like to go first. So this would be almost like a wasted drop. Those armies like to have as few drops as possible, just characters and 3 non-war machine units. But for Wood Elves, for example, which I play, often you don't mind going second. Going first is fine because you get to shoot stuff, but you're deploying pretty defensively most of the time. So this doesn't hurt Wood Elves, for example, in my opinion. So if you're happy going second, then something that fulfills this scout role is very useful. As I mentioned, you want this unit to be as cheap as possible because it's not going to do a thing. It's not going to kill anything. It's not going to contribute to the battle probably in any way except for maybe blocking line of sight, which actually happened in that game, which was quite ridiculous. It's a skirmishing unit, that one. So that helps because you can get them out of the way quickly. In this example as well, it is frenzy blocking my frenzied unit. So if something is here trying to bait my frenzied unit, this unit being in the middle, if it doesn't charge, stops this frenzied unit from having to declare a charge. So that stops you getting, your opponent's chaff being useful, because they might be throwing that in front of my Wild Riders, forcing them to charge them, and then fleeing away, and then all of a sudden my Wild Riders are out of position and get charged. So this is how you're going to use a scout. As I said, it's not going to kill anything. Its job's done when it's on the table. And if best case scenario, you block line of sight, or you might get a flank on something, but I'd be very careful doing that, because if you charge infantry in the flank, they get their double fighting rank. So that's the first archetype. I don't think there's a lot of armies that have this specific one. If you have a really cheap unit though, let's say 50 points or under, that's where you're looking for a scout. So those Wolf Riders I mentioned before, Giant Rats, which I'll get to in a second, they kind of fall into this, but they have another role, which I'll talk to in a second. But that is what I believe the first type of scout of unit, chaff unit is in the game. As I mentioned, those Giant Rats, thank you to Matt Purchase, who's in our Discord. So if you'd like to join our Discord, it's free. Check out the link in the description. He sent this image after I asked for some from some of the guys in there. You can see a unit of Giant Rats here, a unit of Giant Rats here, a unit of Rat Swarms here. So that's 3 drops that he's put down against Bretonia, who often like to put these pegs, for example, in a position where they can hunt down a priority target. These units, which I'm going to get to in a second as well, these Giant Rats here are incredible against first charge units, which I have an example of that shortly as well. Bretonia, full of first charge. So this deployment, you can see how he's gaining deployment advantage, puts these units down first, he puts them at the front, he'll run them out in front of everything. Then I think these are Warp Lightning cannons shooting directly down the line into some Knights of the Realm. So there you go. That's how you gain some advantage. Before I move on to the next types, thank you to our supporters. The clan is growing. As always, check out our major sponsor. The link is in the description to this video, pandemwargaming.com.au. Chaff pumps out some incredible plastic terrain, so check it out. Terrain, movement trays, bases, scenic bases, which are coming on my Skaven very, very soon. Check them out. We get a little kickback if you use that link, so much appreciated. And then the 2+ supporters, these are our Patreons and our YouTube members. Feel free to join if you'd like to support the channel. Goes a long way. I've had 3 new ones since I last made a video. James Alexander, Prophet of Sotek, and Richard Diagenio. And to all the others who've been there from the start and early on, thank you very much. It really does make a big difference. If you'd like to support the channel, check out the links in the description. Now, moving on to one of the more useful forms of chaffs, and this can be found in every faction, I definitely believe so, and these are speed bumps, what I like to call speed bumps. These are meat shields. They like to protect priority targets. They're very good at redirecting charges. They can provide cover or block line of sight from shooting units. And most importantly, they're non-skirmishers. Now let's just run through that in a bit more detail. So meat shields, what I mean by that is just a whole lump of bodies that get in the way. Ideally, they are close ordered. In this photo there, you can see an eagle there that is frenzy baiting a Gorgon. I had two options there. It was my eagle against Alex's Gorgon. But you can see, because the rules state when a close order unit charges a close order unit, you have to make contact with the unit you are charging, then close the door and adapt to their facing, which is this way. So you can see my Eternal Guard at the top of the hill. I really don't want this unit to charge the flank of my toughness 3 5-up Eternal Guards who will get slaughtered by it. So I chuck my meat shield eagle in the way. That means he's frenzied. He has to charge. He can't get around the eagle. So he has to charge the eagle. He makes contact with them. And then if he overruns, he's overrunning into his giant or my one lone wild rider there. So not being skirmish in this scenario is very important, because if it was skirmish and he charges the eagle and the eagle was skirmish, metaphorically, the eagle would then face up to the Gorgon, which wouldn't disrupt the charge direction at all. But in this scenario, he has to face him, and that means it stops a potentially dangerous overrun. Sacrifice the meat shield eagle for a high priority target, like the Eternal Guard, who are currently capturing King of the Hill. The other way these units are good, and another reason why non-skirmishers are better at it, is the providing cover or blocking line of sight. All you need to provide cover to your unit is to have some of your unit's frontage blocked from line of sight. It was misinterpreted for a long time, and a lot of people thought that it was a lot harder to achieve cover. But if you put an eagle in front of a third of your unit's frontage and another shooting unit is directly in front of it, your unit is gaining cover, because most of that unit that's shooting you can't see the entire frontage. So you just plonk an eagle in front of your high priority target, let the shooting come. Hopefully it's not as bad as you think. And then next turn, charge with the eagle to get it out of the way and charge with your priority target. It can also block charges specifically to protect in order to disrupt your opponent being able to charge you at all. And I'm going to show you that with this example from Flesh Beast _AC from our Discord. Again, I had to zoom in a little bit to this, but it is totally fine. You can see here, again, the beautiful giant rats. God bless Skaven. Can't wait to get mine on the table. But he's got a unit of clan rats here with a rattling gun. These are inner circle knights just here. He's sent up a marching column unit of giant rats because we all know rats like to march in unison. But what that is doing is these inner circle knights can no longer see the clan rats. So the inner circle knights have to charge the meat shield giant rats. They charge in, they face up. Now an overrun sends them this direction, dodging the clan rats, possibly providing a flank if they fail their restrain test, and most likely lining up another round of shooting from the rattling gun into the inner circle knights. You sacrifice the 60-point unit to keep your 150-point unit alive. In this example, it's preventing clan rats from dying, which, sure, it's a meat shield of its own, but you substitute that with any other form. If you replace that with storm vermin, for example, you don't want them getting charged. You whack something in front of them, disrupt the direction, stop a first charge as well. If that unit has first charge, have them run through, or they stop right there on their restrain and reform, which means a turn has essentially been wasted while you get to shoot and get a more advantaged position. So I really think that the speed bump is one of the more important ones. It's pretty hard to use, but it's how you get this one. You can definitely get an edge over your opponent by the use of movement and the use of skill and knowing how close order and open order units rank up into combat. Now, my favorite type of chaff, though, is what I like to call the decoy, because this one has a bit of punch. This one, I like to think you have to kill it or be killed by it. They're incredible time wasters, because if your opponent doesn't kill them, then there's actually a consequence for it. So it forces action out of your opponent, and that creates a distraction, and it buys time for your priority units to get into position, maybe hold an objective for longer, maybe set up your own charge. The good part about this unit, it's usually very killable, but it's also very killy. And these are your ideal war machine hunters, I believe, especially if they're fast cavalry. War Machine Hunters die to a stiff breeze, but this just guarantees that if you can get halfway across the board in one turn, charge the next turn, your opponent's not going to let their Great Cannon die. They're just not going to do it. So if it soaks up around a shooting from Outriders or something like that, then job done. But in this scenario there, where you can see the Mangler, I sent it forward, where you can see the Mangler, my opponent, Mike, friend of the pod, he marched up with his knights, I think within 11 inches. I rolled an 11. This thing but he was being tentative, but couldn't go any further, but didn't want to be too far away. My Mangler just rips into it. I roll a 6 for the impact hit, 6 for the stomps, which is 3, and then 6 for the random attacks. I wipe an entire unit of knights, and that thing essentially won me the game. He's 95 points. A lot of people wouldn't think a Mangler is chaff, but I do believe it is. A lot of people have very high expectations for it. But at the end of the day, he's toughness 5 with 5+ armor and 4 wounds. He's essentially a chariot, which die very quickly if you don't get what you want off. And that's the kind of Warhammer I like to play. But chariots are another example of that decoy. You can see at the bottom of that screen is an orc boar chariot, also comes in around 90 points. The goblin wolf rider, so the goblin wolf chariot, also, I believe, really great use of chaff. 60 points, movement 9, has some impact hits, has swift stride on a chariot. So that's really cool. Let down, of course, by the weapon skill 2 goblins on top, but hey, a lot of units a lot of factions have units like this, where you just get to push them forward, make your opponent charge them. You can't just push them forward in the middle of the battlefield and hope for the best. You can just manipulate their movement. So if they charge them, they're going into a bad position. Set up counter charges of your own. This is the one where, although often it does die because your opponent has to kill it, their sole role isn't to die. And that's a bit of a distinction with the other ones. The speed bump, for example, which you are literally throwing out to die. This one can do a bit of slapback of its own. So I think it's the most enjoyable form of chaff, to be honest. And the one I like to make sure I have one unit of in the game, if possible. But they're my 3 types, guys. Let me know how you use chaff in your games. The title of this is chaff pointless? I don't think it is. I don't think it's going to turn the tide against, meta Cathay, meta Vampire Counts, meta Tomb Kings. But Tomb Kings is a great example of an army that has a great chaff. The Scorpion is probably the best chaff unit in the game. It can bloody kill a Pegasus Lord. It can kill a dragon if it gets to strike first somehow. But I think it's 70 or 80 points or something. And you can't ignore it. So I think it's having a bit of a resurgence, chaff. And if you're having fun with it, let us know. Again, support the channel if you can. Like, comment, subscribe. As always, if not, check out those links in the description and go a little bit further. I will be back soon with another video. But until then, I'll catch you then. See you later.